Welcome to the Psychology Undergrad.
Hey!
Pull up a chair. I hope you brought caffeine because looking at this stack of papers on the table,
Wow.
we are going to need it.
It is definitely a heavy load this week. I feel like every time we open the human sexuality syllabus, the reading list, just doubles.
Tell me about it. And honestly, this is the module everyone in the lecture hall has been whispering about. We are finally tackling the pornography unit.
Mm-hmm.
But before we get into it, I have to be real with you. I was dreading this study session.
Hey.
I kind of expected this to be a, moral panic lecture.
Oh, totally.
Just a lot of finger wagging and back in my day kind of stuff.
I get that. It's such a loaded topic, but we aren't here to preach. We are here to prep for the final.
Right.
And if you actually look at the data we have spread out here,
Yep.
from the 2017 pilot studies all the way to this massive Frontiers in Child and Adolescent Psychiatry paper from late 2025, the shift in the academic consensus is it's undeniable.
Okay.
This isn't really about morality in the traditional sense. It's about public health.
It's wild. Okay, so to kick off this study session, let's look at the sheer scale of the issue. I highlighted this metric from the Cindy Pierce notes. This is from her TEDx material.
Oh, yeah, I saw that.
She breaks down the traffic stats. If you take the number of clicks on internet porn sites in a single month, just 1 month,
Okay.
it equals the traffic of Netflix, Twitter, and Amazon.
Wait.
Combined.
No, that can't be right. Combined. Just think about the bandwidth that represents. Netflix alone is massive. Amazon is the global marketplace. Twitter is, the town square. And porn traffic swallows them all whole.
Right.
It suggests this isn't a niche vice anymore. Statistically speaking, it is the primary way a huge chunk of the human population interacts with the internet.
It is the water we are swimming in.
Yeah.
But here's the hook that really stopped me into, I think this is going to be on the exam.
Yeah.
Warren Binford, in her lecture notes, uses this phrase.
Oh, I know what you're going to say.
Digital castration.
Yeah, I circled that twice in red. It's such an aggressive term.
It sounds like sci-fi, doesn't it?
Yeah.
But she's talking about a very real phenomenon. We are seeing 18 to 25-year-old men, physically healthy, testosterone levels are fine, prime of their biological lives, who are unable to be aroused by real-life partners.
Wow.
They're effectively castrated by their own consumption habits because they've rewired their arousal templates for pixels, not people.
And that is the core mission of this study session, right? We have to unpack how this super normal stimulus, that's the term psychology today uses, how it interacts with the developing brain.
Right.
We need to figure out, is this just a bad habit? Is it an addiction? Or, and this is where that new 2025 research throws a curveball,
Yeah?
is it actually a form of trauma?
The trauma angle is heavy. I really want to push back on that when we get there because trauma is a big word to throw around for watching videos.
For sure. But let's stick to the syllabus structure for now.
Okay.
Section 1, prevalence and the new normal.
What is stats telling us? The landscape has completely shifted from what the textbooks used to say even 10 years ago.
Totally. If you look at the Recovery Alberta notes and the Cindy Pierce material, the age of onset, the first exposure has just cratered.
Cratered is the right word. We are seeing boys exposed around age 10 on average.
10 years old.
10, that is 4th grade. They are still trading Pokemon cards.
And girls around 12 or 13. But the crucial variable here isn't just the age, it's the mechanism of delivery.
Right.
In previous developmental psych models, exposure happened via magazines found in the woods or a stolen VHS tape. It was static, finite, and hard to access.
And now?
It is 90% mobile devices.
Which changes the parenting dynamic entirely. You can't monitor a screen that's 4 inches wide, lives in a backpack, and goes to the bathroom with them.
No way.
But there's this really specific mechanism in the Cindy Pierce notes about how they find it. She calls it the boobies algorithm.
Right. This is critical because it just debunks the bad kid myth. We often assume kids are out there actively hunting for hardcore content.
Exactly. Pierce notes that parents freak out when they see the browser history, but the entry point is usually so innocent. A 10-year-old boy types in boobies.
He doesn't use the clinical term breasts, of course not.
No, and he certainly isn't typing in the graphic porn terms yet. He uses a child's word. But the algorithm, it doesn't care that the user is 10. It doesn't care about innocence.
It operates on one metric,
Engagement.
And engaging in the algorithm's code means extreme. So it sees boobies and it says, okay, that's a start, but if I show you this graphic video, you're 400% more likely to stay on the site.
So it escalates immediately.
Instantly. From a curious search to hardcore suggestions, because that is what retains the click.
And it's not always even a search, is it? The CBC source with Sonia Thompson mentions this trap effect. This one really freaked me out.
The pop-up trap. Yes. There's a case study in the notes of a boy named Joseph. He was 9 years old. He wasn't looking for girls. He was playing a video game on a free site. A pop-up ad appeared. He clicked it thinking it was part of the game.
And he was just lured in.
It wasn't a search. It was a stumble.
And Thompson makes this distinction between curiosity and craving. That's a key psychological distinction for us.
Totally.
You think it's just curiosity at first, the seeking system in the brain? But the content is so hyper-stimulating that the brain gets hooked before the kid even cognitively processes what they're seeing.
So it becomes a craving almost instantly.
Yeah.
That brings us to the content itself. Because if I'm reading the Recovery Alberta notes correctly, our definitions of porn are, like, completely outdated.
How so?
What we consider vanilla or softcore now would have been illegal or at least deeply underground 20 years ago.
This is the normalization of violence aspect. The source notes that historically, hardcore meant showing genitals or actual intercourse.
Right. Pretty basic stuff.
Today, if you go to the front page of a tube site, hardcore involves violent anal penetration, deep oral sex to the point of vomiting.
Literally gagging as a fetish.
Yeah. And themes of incest and gang rape.
And the terrifying part is that the source says this extreme stuff is now accepted as softcore in the mainstream. It's the default setting. The baseline for arousal has just, it's moved.
We have to pause on the morality of that for a second. Even from a secular, psychological perspective, what does that do to a developing moral compass?
I mean,
if you watch people being gagged and slapped and treated like garbage every day for 5 years, doesn't that shift your window of what acceptable human behavior is?
It has to. It's systematic desensitization. We use that in therapy to help people get over phobias, right? You expose them to the thing they fear until they feel nothing.
So here, we are exposing kids to violence and degradation.
Until they feel nothing. We are essentially boiling the frog.
And the parents are totally in the dark. I circled this stat.
Yeah.
75% of parents think their kids haven't seen it.
Versus the reality, which is over 68%. And up to 90% in some cohorts having seen it.
That is a massive awareness gap. It is cognitive dissonance on a parental level.
Denial is a powerful drug.
Well, speaking of drugs, let's move to section 2.
Yeah.
We've got to put our neuropsych hats on. We need to talk about the construction zone. This is probably going to be the technical part of the exam.
This is crucial. If you don't understand the adolescent brain architecture, none of this makes any sense. The Psychology Today and Warren Binford notes break this down. You have to imagine the brain as a construction site where the foreman has, walked off the job.
Right. And the two main players we need to know are the prefrontal cortex, the PFC, and the limbic system.
Yeah.
Specifically, the nucleus accumbens.
Correct. So the limbic system is the primitive engine. It's the emotional brain, the reward center. In teenagers, the nucleus accumbens, that's the part that screams, do that again when it gets dopamine, is fully mature.
It's fully gassed up.
Totally. It is a Ferrari engine.
But the prefrontal cortex,
that's the brake system. That's the rational decision-making impulse control center. And crucially, it is not finished.
This is the myelination gap.
Exactly. Myelination is the process of insulating the neural pathways with this fatty sheath so signals can move fast. It connects the brakes to the engine.
Right.
That connection to the prefrontal cortex isn't finished until the mid-20s. So adolescents have a heightened sensitivity to rewards. They feel the gas way more intensely than adults, but they have a much lower capacity to regulate the impulse.
So you have a Ferrari engine, bicycle brakes, and you drive it onto a track made of ice.
And then you flood that system with a supernormal stimulus.
Explain that term, supernormal stimulus.
Yeah.
Sounds like a superpower.
It's an ethology term, actually. It refers to an artificial version of a stimulus that is way more attractive than the real thing, like a bird that prefers a giant plastic egg over its own real egg. Internet porn is high-speed, it's infinite, it's novel, and it's perfectly lit. It is a supernormal stimulus compared to real-life interaction.
And when you drop that into a developing limbic system,
you hijack the reward system. It's a dopamine loop. But here's the technical nuance we need to get right. It's not just that they like it. It's about receptor downregulation.
Okay, walk us through that.
When you flood the brain with way too much dopamine, the brain says, whoa, this is too loud. To protect itself, it actually starts to kill off dopamine receptors.
It turns down the volume.
It turns down the volume. That's downregulation.
So now normal things, like hanging out with friends, eating a good meal, or just regular sex, they don't register.
Exactly. You feel numb. The baseline is too low. The Psychology Today source compares this explicitly to drug tolerance. You need more extreme, more novel, more shocking content just to feel normal, let alone high.
Which explains why they spiral from boobies to choking and vomiting videos. They aren't necessarily deviants, they're just chasing the dopamine dragon because their receptors are fried.
Precisely. And while we are on brain structure, we have to talk about pruning. This is the other side of the coin.
Use it or lose it.
It is the fundamental rule of adolescent brain development. The brain looks at which pathways are being used, and it strengthens them. That's the myelination.
And the ones that aren't being used.
It marks them as waste, and it just cuts them away. Pruning.
So, if a young man is spending 2 hours a day strengthening the pathway for digital voyeurism, for solitary sexual gratification via a screen,
he is building a superhighway for isolation.
And meanwhile, the pathways for reading facial cues, for handling awkward silence, for emotional intimacy, those are overgrown trails that the brain might just decide to pave over.
That is the risk. You are biologically prioritizing isolation over connection. You are hardwiring the brain to be alone.
And we see the physical result of that. Going back to Cindy Pierce and the fraternity guys, the porn-induced erectile dysfunction.
Yeah, this is the most concrete evidence of the wiring change. These are 20-year-old men. Vascularly, they are fine.
Right.
But they cannot get an erection with a real woman.
Because their brain doesn't recognize her as a sexual stimulus?
Exactly.
Okay.
She doesn't have 4K resolution. She doesn't have a mute button. She doesn't change position every 15 seconds. The brain has been conditioned, Pavlovian style, to respond to pixels.
A real person is a sensory mismatch.
Totally. It's like trying to eat a raw apple after you've been living on pure high-fructose corn syrup for 10 years.
The apple just doesn't taste like anything.
That is a perfect analogy. It's a desensitization to reality.
Okay, that's the hardware. Let's shift gears to section 3. Social psychology. Because the brain isn't just wiring itself in a vacuum, it's downloading software, the social scripts. Cindy Pierce has this term, compliance training.
This is where the sociology intersects with the psychology. Pierce argues that society already socializes girls to be nice, to be assertive, but not a bitch.
Sure.
And then porn comes in and reinforces a very specific script. Women are there to provide services. They endure pain. They are compliant.
But wait, isn't that just like a feminist critique? Is there actual data backing up that this changes how people think?
Well, look at the orgasm gap data. The script in porn is usually insertion, aggressive thrusting, and then the woman has an earth-shattering orgasm within minutes. It looks easy. It looks mechanical.
But the biological reality
is that 70% of women do not climax from penetration alone. The anatomy of the clitoris, which Cindy Pierce notes has 8,000 nerve endings, is often just ignored in mainstream porn scripts because it's not visual enough for the camera.
So you have young women watching this thinking, I'm supposed to orgasm just from this piston action. And when they don't, they think they're broken.
And many admit to faking it to please their partner, which just reinforces the bad script. It's a feedback loop of misinformation.
So the boys think they're doing it right because the porn and the faking tells them so.
Exactly.
Speaking of boys getting the wrong data, I laughed out loud at the penis size part of the notes. But then I realized how sad it is.
The body dysmorphia is massive. The average penis size in pornography is around 8 inches.
Which is, statistically, a unicorn.
It is a massive statistical outlier, but the average real-world penis is 5.1 inches.
And Cindy Pierce tells that story about the fraternity brothers. She reveals this stat to them, that 5.1 is normal, and they literally jump up and high-five each other.
Think about the psychology of that moment. They have been carrying this secret shame, thinking they are inadequate because their reference point is a fictionalized, surgically altered, camera angle tricked industry standard.
It's just heartbreaking that they needed a lady in her 40s to come into a frat house to tell them they are normal. It shows how much silence there is around this.
But there is a darker side to these social scripts, too. We can't just talk about insecurity. We have to talk about Warren Binford's points on hostile sexism.
Yeah, this isn't just about feeling bad about yourself. This is about how they view women.
The research suggests that heavy porn consumption in males is linked to what they call regressive attitudes. They start seeing women less as equals and more as objects or even threats to their dominance.
So if your primary teacher of sexuality shows women enjoying degradation,
It becomes harder to respect female authority in the workplace or the classroom.
and that bleeds into the bystander apathy point Binford makes. This really scared me.
It should. There is a correlation between heavy porn use in both men and women, actually.
Wait, and women too?
Yeah, in both men and women, and a decreased likelihood of intervening in a sexual assault.
Hold on. Explain the mechanism there. Why would watching porn make you less likely to help someone?
The theory is normative desensitization. If you consume media where non-consensual or pseudo-consensual behavior is the norm, where women saying no eventually means yes, it just numbs your radar.
You become a passive witness.
Exactly. You see something in real life that looks like harassment, but your brain has seen thousands of hours of that being presented as entertainment, so the alarm bells don't ring.
So we are morally numbing ourselves to real-world suffering. We are training ourselves to be spectators of abuse.
That's a good way to put it.
That is heavy.
It is. It's the blurring of the line between violence and sex.
Okay, speaking of heavy, we need to get to the new stuff. Section 4, Advanced Theory. This is the 2025 paper from Frontiers in Child and Adolescent Psychiatry.
This is the centerpiece of the new curriculum.
And I have to be honest, when I first read the abstract, I was skeptical. They're proposing we view early porn exposure not as a habit, but as a form of trauma.
Capital T trauma.
Yes, capital T trauma.
I had the same reaction. Usually trauma is reserved for, war zones, physical abuse, or severe neglect. It feels like we might be watering down the definition.
Exactly. Are we just being dramatic?
But then you look at their methodology. They are comparing the neurological footprint of early porn exposure to the ACE's framework adverse childhood experiences.
Right.
And they argue that trauma is defined as an event that exceeds an individual's internal resources to cope.
Okay, that definition I can work with.
So if a child sees violent, hardcore sex, they cannot cognitively process it. They don't have the files in their brain to sort that information. It creates a state of shock and overwhelming arousal that the system just can't handle.
And the paper makes this fascinating distinction between the bonding system and the sexual system.
Right. This is key. In a healthy development, the bonding system, love, trust, safety, develops first. The sexual system comes online later, during puberty, and integrates into the bonding system.
But porn trauma flips the script.
It attacks the developing sexual system before the bonding system is ready. It introduces the erotization of violence before the child understands love or consent. It pairs arousal with degradation.
And the paper applies the classic trauma responses: fight, flight, dissociation, specifically to porn consumers. Let's walk through those because this helps explain the behaviors we see on campus.
Good idea.
What does flight look like here?
Flight is usually about escaping a threat. Here, the threat is the complexity of the real world. So flight manifests as disconnecting, social isolation, depression.
So the addiction itself becomes the escape.
Exactly. The addiction to the screen becomes the bunker. They are fleeing reality into the digital world because the real world feels too demanding or scary compared to the easy, reliable reward of the screen.
Okay, and fight. This seems like the one that leads to the hostile sexism we talked about.
Exactly. Fight manifests as identifying with the aggressor. To avoid feeling humiliated or weak, which is how the child felt when they first saw the scary content, they adopt the persona of the dominant performer.
And that leads to?
It can lead to sexual coercion, dominant behaviors, or antisocial actions. They are trying to regain control by becoming the perpetrator.
And dissociation. This one seems particularly relevant for girls or victims of what the paper calls re-victimization.
Dissociation is the freeze response. It's mentally leaving the room. The paper suggests that exposure to degrading content can teach a child, especially a girl, that their role is to surrender.
So during sex, they dissociate.
They check out.
Starfishing.
Right. And this makes them compliant, which fits the porn script, but it also makes them incredibly vulnerable to abuse because they aren't present to assert boundaries. They've learned to turn themselves into objects.
That is devastating. It's not just learning bad tricks. It's fundamentally breaking the mechanism of self-protection.
It's a staining of the psyche, if we want to get philosophical. Even using secular terms, it's a loss of innocence. You are exposing a child to adult degradation before they have a self-concept.
We have to talk about the legal side of this, because if it's trauma, if it's actual psychological damage, why is it so accessible? Section 5. Law and ethics. We have the Canadian context from the Justice Department notes.
Right. So legally, the age of consent in Canada is 16. That's the baseline.
But there are exceptions, and this always confuses people on the exams. The close-in-age exception.
It's important nuance. A 14-year-old can legally be with a 16-year-old because the gap is less than 5 years. The law recognizes that peers exploring sexuality is different from an adult exploiting a child.
Right. No exploitation, no position of trust.
Exactly. But the definition of child pornography is broader than people think. It's not just photos. It includes written or audio material that advocates sexual activity with minors.
So a story about it counts?
Potentially, yes. The law is trying to create a hard boundary. But then we have the regulation debate. Warren Binford brings up this uniquely American but globally relevant tension. She says Americans love sex, guns, and money.
And freedom of speech.
Right. And the argument is often made that regulating the internet infringes on speech. But Binford pushes back hard. She asks a question that I think we need to wrestle with.
What's that?
Should the freedom of speech argument protect a $100 billion industry that is actively exploiting children's developing brains?
She calls for treating it like a utility, right?
Yeah.
It's like, we regulate water. You can't pump sewage into the tap water and say, hey, freedom of fluids.
Exactly.
We regulate electricity. Why don't we regulate the internet so it doesn't have hazardous material for kids?
Precisely. She wants age verification that actually works, because right now the click here if you are 18 button is a joke.
It's not a barrier, it's a speed bump.
It's barely a speed bump. It's a welcome mat. It effectively transfers liability to the user. Well, you lied, so it's not our fault.
Which is, yeah.
And the legal system is lagging so far behind the technology. We are trying to apply 20th century laws to a 21st century super stimulus.
Okay, we have been pretty dark for this whole session. My cortisol levels are spiking.
I feel you.
Let's move to Section 6.
Yeah.
Applied psychology, interventions, and hope. Please tell me there is hope.
There is absolutely hope, and it goes back to the brain science we started with. Neuroplasticity.
The brain is plastic. It can change.
Exactly. Neuroplasticity cuts both ways. Just as the brain rewired itself to get addicted to porn, it can rewire itself back. The synapses that are pruned can't necessarily grow back instantly, but new pathways can be formed.
Cindy Pierce has that great case study about the detox.
The fraternity brother. This is a great anecdotal evidence point. He quit porn for 6 months, cold turkey.
And the result?
His erectile dysfunction disappeared, his depression lifted, and this is the most interesting part. His fantasy highlight reel changed. He told Pierce that he stopped fantasizing about the violent, aggressive stuff and started fantasizing about connection and real intimacy again.
He detoxed his brain. He lowered his tolerance threshold.
He did. But there is a warning here. Another student in the study only quit for 2 months. And when he went back to it, thinking he was cured,
oh no,
the symptoms crept back almost immediately.
So it's not a quick fix. It's a lifestyle change. It requires long-term maintenance.
Exactly. It's like getting in shape. You can't go to the gym for 2 months and then expect to stay fit while eating junk food for the rest of the year. The brain is an organ. It responds to what you feed it.
So that's the intervention for the user. What about prevention? We need to talk about communication strategies, because clearly whatever parents are doing now isn't working.
The experts, Pierce, Binford, all of them, agree on one thing. The talk is dead.
You mean the one big birds and bees speech where the dad sweats and the kid looks at the floor?
Right. That doesn't work. It's too late and it's too awkward. It needs to be a continuous conversation, and it needs to start early.
How early?
Pierce suggests using anatomical names penis, vulva by age 3.
Get rid of the shame.
Exactly. If you can't say the words, you can't talk about the problem. If a kid only knows the word pee-pee, they aren't equipped to talk about sexual boundaries.
That makes sense.
And I love the fire drill approach she mentions.
Oh, this is practical gold. Tell us about the fire drill.
You know how we do fire drills so kids know what to do before there is smoke.
Yeah.
You do the same for the internet. You tell your kids before they see anything, you say, hey, the internet is big and weird. If you see something naked or scary or gross on the screen, come tell me.
And the important part.
You will not be in trouble. We will just fix it.
That you will not be in trouble part is key.
Yeah.
Because if the kid thinks they'll lose their iPad or that mom will be mad.
They will hide it. And if they hide it, the shame grows. And shame is the fertilizer for addiction. You have to be a safe harbor.
And finally, porn literacy. This is what we are doing right now, basically.
It is. We don't just ban it. We explain it. We explain that these are actors, there is lighting, there is editing, that the women are often in pain but acting like they aren't.
Deconstruct the media.
Yes. If a kid can look at a video and say, that's fake, that's acting, that's not real life, they are inoculated against the worst effects. They can critically analyze it rather than absorbing it as truth.
It's like showing them the behind the scenes of a horror movie so they aren't scared of the monster anymore.
Look, it's just a guy in a rubber suit.
Exactly. Demystify it. Take away its power. All right, class, let's wrap this up. We have covered a lot.
We have. We went from the dopamine-fueled adolescent brain rushing on gas with no brakes to the social scripts of sexism and compliance, all the way to the potential trauma of early exposure.
And the digital castration of a generation.
Yeah.
It's a lot to process. My brain is definitely full. But we promised an exam question. A final provocative thought to leave you with.
Right. So here's the question I want you to mull over. If we accept the core tenet of biology and psychology, that the organism is shaped by its environment.
Nature and nurture.
Exactly. If the environment shapes the organism, then we have to ask, what kind of human being is inevitably designed by an environment where the primary sexual teacher is an algorithm that rewards extreme violence?
Wow.
If the input is dehumanization, can the output be anything other than a dehumanized society?
That is a terrifying question.
Yeah.
But one we have to answer.
It's the question of our generation.
All right, I need to go touch some grass. Class dismissed. Good luck with the reading. See you next semester.
See you then.